Never say these things to your realtor. I don't care who you are or how badass you think you are. Don't say these things to your realtor. Hi, I'm Saul Carter. I have been a real estate broker for 20 some odd years now. And my business motto has always been business sense, common sense, uncommon realtor. And if that kind of rubs people, realtors, the wrong way a little bit, but here's why it's justified. Realtors are right up there next to used car salespeople as reputation, as our reputation. It's warranted. I've known a lot of realtors in my day. Most of the people who make the most money in this in short-term markets are really good marketers, but the people who've been around for a long time, they understand that the best thing that they can do is represent their seller. But that doesn't mean that you should just throw up everything and give away all your leverage with the first person you're negotiating with about selling your home. So I'm going to go through some of these items. They are kind of my pet peeves, and some never say to your real estate agents. Doesn't mean these subjects won't come up, but let's talk about how we can present them. And there's this alone could save you so much trouble in getting your home sold, right? Because the first person you're negotiating with is your listing agent. It's not a buyer or anybody else. Until you sign on the dotted line, you are not represented in a fiduciary manner by that real estate broker until you sign on the dotted line. Once you do, their motivations have to change. They have to represent you more than they represent anybody else. So let's talk about the 10 things in no particular order that you should never say to your listing agent, especially before you've listed. All right, number one is the one that I get all the time is, it's part of people's story and they say, oh, we have to sell. Now, the truth of the matter is selling your home is an annoying thing. So as a real estate agent, we know you have to sell. You're not just, inviting 3 or 4 realtors into your home and having them walk through and do all this stuff because you don't want to make a change so we understand that, but there's just a different way of phrasing it. So never tell them I have to sell by, right? Because, the truth of the matter is they'll be like, okay, well, we can do that, but it's going to take some, you're going to have to smash that price down a little bit. We don't necessarily want to do that right off the top. So, but there is ways to phrase it. Say, hey, look, we need to sell. It is something that's our family plan, but it's, we're motivated, but it needs to be the right numbers and the right timing and all that stuff. Same story, little bit of different phrasing, and you're not coming to that initial meeting in, that situation where you've already given up your time, right? Next one is our bottom line is. Now, in today's world, we have Zillow, we have all the different things. Heck, we even had ChatGPT that can go in there and get all the different pricing for all the different homes, and we can get pretty close to where we should be listed and selling at. And we can even do net sheets and stuff. We don't need real estate agents for that anymore. But you don't need to talk to your agent about that, because let's say your bottom line and you would have made an extra 40 grand, right? But it is easier for that agent to just list it at that $40,000 less. If they can make that work, they're going to, because for a real estate agent, time is the biggest thing that they're selling, right? And so want to make sure that you have a pricing plan and it's not based around a specific bottom line. It doesn't mean that you can't have a bottom line. It doesn't mean that once you list with somebody, you can't convey that information. Hey, we really need to make sure that it fits into this category right here. But, let's not just start out the whole talking with your agent with our bottom line is blank, right? Because it creates an artificial ceiling and they're not going to be honest with you. And so, yes, it gets into a situation where you'll just have agents that if that's your biggest motivation, they will use that motivation and not necessarily represent you by getting you the best price. They'll just go ahead and, wrap themselves right around that if that's your top motivation, right? So, next one is don't say, we want to price high and see what happens. Now, it is the hardest thing to do to not want to do this. I can tell you because I, as a real estate broker, when I sell my homes, I want to do this because I want to make sure that I'm not leaving anything on the table. However, the truth of the matter is the best pricing strategy is to make sure that you actually price your home just under what the market value is, because then you'll create more excitement. In the last home that I sold, the average days on market were 67. I ended up selling it from listing to closed in 22 days, and did that because I priced it under. Oh yeah, and I also got $15,000 over what market was. And so, that doesn't seem like a lot, depending on how big your home is. This particular home was I ended up selling for $489,000. By Southern California standards, that's, half a home. But, it still is being sure to not overpriced. All that does is create stagnation. It can still happen. I have a listing that was listed. They ended up renting it 3 years of being listed, and then they ended up renting it, and they should have just rented it to begin with. But they lost $150,000, not including mortgage payments and all that other stuff, because they priced it way too high. We had offers that they could have taken that they just didn't. Right. But all you need to do to make your house sit on the market way too long is overprice it. And I know that that's hard because our egos are wrapped up into our homes. I know that it happens to me. I happen to feel that I'm a way better negotiator for other people and not myself. And I have to physically force myself to adhere to these rules personally. All right. Never tell agents, we already know what it's worth. Now, the truth is you probably do, right? In this world, if you do, 30 minutes worth of research, you're pretty close because you have so many assets available on the internet and all that other stuff. The reason I want you to do that is because I want you to have that real estate agent do the work, right? And explain himself and explain his plan and all those other things. But if you just say, hey, here's what it is, he'll say, oh, I totally agree. Let's go ahead and get that taken care of because I'm so glad that we're on the same line. And they may have had a totally different number. So just don't say that right up front. And it doesn't mean that you're not in charge. You're in charge, but don't just let that agent buy that listing, especially when you do overpriced stuff. The way it works is real estate agents will just say, sure, and they'll just wait. And then you'll finally get frustrated after 90 days or 6 months or 3 years. And all they typically still end up getting the commission out of that just as, 6-8 months later. Doesn't do you any good, especially depending on what your timelines are on getting your home sold. So anyway, all right. Number 5 is, and I understand this one can cost a little bit and it hurts a little bit, but don't tell your agent, oh, my cat's in here. Anyway, don't tell your agent, we don't want to fix anything, we're going to sell it as is. Now, the truth of the matter is in California, that doesn't really mean that much because you could tell people you want to sell it as is, but if buyers still have the legal right to inspections, and they still have the legal right to ask you to make repairs. And you can address that stuff, but just don't throw all that stuff right out there to begin with. The best way to phrase that is, hey, we're open to any kind of plan as long as it makes financial sense. So with the buyers or the listing agent or whomever wants things done, make it a plan. Don't just say willy-nilly, we're not going to do anything at all. Sometimes you can do a little thing that ends up getting you big gains. And so don't be open to that, so you're not just kicking yourself in the foot. All right. Oh, this one this one is the one. Don't tell your folks, hey, that's not permitted. We're not really worried about it. Everything's good with that. Get your permits taken care of, right? Agents are not in charge of that, but they can help you get through that process. But make sure that you have everything permitted. Don't just say, hey, it's not permitted, but it's totally perfect, because that could end up killing a deal, and it won't be the agent's fault in the long run, and it definitely won't be the person, sometimes you just can't get things sold if they're not actually permitted. So, and your kitchens might not be permitted, by the way. All right. Number 7, not in any particular order, is don't tell your agent that you won't do showings, right? The truth is, nobody's going to buy your house if they don't see it. And if they are giving you tons of money to buy your house, it's a really weird situation. It might be like drug money. Who knows, right? Not that you won't take it, but I don't trust people who make offers on property, especially when they're buying it for a home for themselves, that have not seen it or make some sort of account for them to see it in the contract. So you want showings. In fact, the easier you can make showings, the better, right? Because it just makes your home that much more accessible, faster, and so you can get people in. And the more people you can get in, as long as they're qualified, then the more likely you are to sell your property for that higher dollar. That doesn't mean you can't say, hey, we need a showing plan. Like, I don't want to just have it to where they can call me and be here in 30 minutes. Make a plan. You can make things very accessible with a simple plan. It does not have to be 24/7. I let people into my house. All right. Next one, because I said they were not in any particular order. Don't interview 5 agents and just say, hey, we're going with the lowest commission. The truth is, another way that you can buy listings is just by having it be with the lowest commission. And, depending on the size of the property and all that other stuff, it can be a pretty big dollar amount difference. And I understand that. But sometimes that is you're saving pennies and costing you dollars. So make sure that you have an agent that isn't just giving things up willy-nilly, because they're going to do the same thing to you when they're negotiating on your behalf. You want to make sure that you have somebody who's at least willing to negotiate on his own behalf before he's required legally to negotiate on your behalf. So make that happen. Commissions are definitely part of the negotiation, but don't think that they're the only part of the negotiation, because you'll get some really bad realtors who just say, fine, I'll take the whatever number. All right. Don't tell your listing agent, hey, we already bought our other house, so we need to sell it really fast. Now, that doesn't really change anything other than they'll just strip all your motivations to make more money out. That is not information that needs to be passed on to anybody else. Now, in the long run, will it be found out and all this other stuff? Yes, but you don't need a buyer to know that up front. And along those lines too, be wary of a listing agent that is super excited to represent the buyer. Also, legally, they have to represent you as the seller first, and they typically will. It's really the buyer's agents or the buyers that are going to get the raw deal on that. But, and it doesn't mean that I haven't doubled into deals before. I really don't like it. There is an upside. There's a lot of downsides, but I just want to make sure that in this world that I am motivated to treat my sellers as like they are the goal that they are. So, anyway, so don't tell them you have to sell fast. Just reframe it a little bit. You have a preferred timeline. We're working through this, and just be honest, but don't just give up the ghost right off the bat. And last but not least is don't tell your agent you don't want to disclose. All that is just asking for trouble. You want to make sure that you are disclosing everything. And in my experience, I found that if you disclose everything, you can disclose the worst things if you disclose early and often. If you wait or try to hide things and then they get found out, then the buyers freak out because they think, what else is this person hiding from me? So make sure that you are disclosing early, and don't tell your agent that you're not going to disclose, because it's just going to get into a problem with we have to go out and do our own inspection. Even if we're never been a property inspector before, we have to go out and do that as well. And so we don't want to deal with having to risk our licenses and all those other things as well. So just in my opinion, disclose early, disclose often, and do a big document dump on them. You're going to, quote unquote, get away with a lot more with that upfront honesty. So those are my top 10 things to never talk to your agent about. And this is basically something because until you have a good relationship with that listing agent, and that comes from more than just half an hour on the phone or in person. It takes a transaction to find out what a real estate agent is really like. So make sure that you're, keeping things nice and tight to your chest until it's the right time to divulge that information as far as how you're negotiating with your listing agent, right? So I hope that helps. If there's anything that I missed, make a comment. Tell me if I'm just completely crazy below. Be sure to subscribe if you want some more tips and tricks, and I will talk to you later.